welcome in, welcome back. I'm your host, Lizz Grace, and this is Galactic Mythology. It's been a while, and if you are watching this on video, you might notice that there is a scenery change because I am in my friend John Carter's music studio, also known as Wellspring Music Studios, based out of Jaja PDX here in Portland, Oregon. I have been fortunate enough to get my own studio space in this art collective, and with that, I asked John if I could use his recording studio to record my podcast, and he so graciously said yes. So thank you, John Carter. I'm really excited to be here, and I have a feeling that my audio quality is only going to go up from here. With that being said, it's been a while. I've been gone, at least gone off of the podcast wave. However, I've been really busy in the whole fashion designer astrology wave. I have 2 events coming up, the first one being June 16th, and it is a steampunk music festival that I will be vending my clothes at. And a week after that, I will be vending my clothes at a music festival called Reunion. So that is going on, I believe, let me look at my calendar here, June 23rd through the 25th. So I've been sewing away, just sewing my days away. Haven't really had much time to jump on here and get a podcast recorded, so I apologize. However, my guides, Spirit, the universe has really been wanting me to sit down and get something out. And it's a pretty simple message. However, I believe that the nuances of the message are something that we will explore as I discuss the mythology and synchronicities that I've been experiencing, evolving, revolving around this message. And the message is for us as human beings to balance our left and right hemispheres and to give more attention to the emotional side of our beings. And I believe that this is coming through because we are at a pivotal point in our expansion as a collective consciousness on this earth where we are about to grow in higher density. And I don't know where you are on the spiritual spectrum, but at this point, I'm not going to hold back anymore. I believe that we are all on a path of spiritual ascension, and if you don't want to tap into that, then that's your choice. If you want to tap into that, then continue listening to this podcast, and I will tell you all about this message of tapping into our emotions. So let's dive in. So if you've listened to or watched my podcasts in the past, you know that I'm exploring the asteroids, specifically the asteroids that we use in astrology. And right now I've explored Ceres and Vesta, and I'm currently working on Juno. And through my exploration of Juno, I have kind of circled back to this message of emotional integration. And the reason for that is the story of how Juno and Zeus actually became husband and wife has a lot of the similar patterning of other stories where great female goddesses essentially agree to go to the underworld or to separate and come back in some capacity. And when we look at the different stories of Zeus and Juno's union, you see a pattern where basically Juno has to make a choice to commit herself to Zeus, to consciously commit herself to another as a point of evolution for herself, but I think also for humanity as a greater good. And we see this through, for example, the first story of Zeus and Hera's union. So Juno is also known as Hera, and I might oscillate between the 2 names, so I apologize, but just so you know, Juno is Hera. Juno is Roman, and Hera is Greece. They are the same goddess. Anyways, so Zeus one day is spying on Hera from afar and basically decides that he wants to jump her bones. And so he creates this really ghastly storm and then takes the form of a cuckoo bird and flies down to Hera and then lands at her feet and acts like he is just so exhausted from those winds and he just cannot go on anymore. And Hera takes pity on him and takes him to her breast, and as she does so, Zeus turns back into the big macho man that he is and basically forces himself upon her. Hera feels extreme guilt after their forced union and feels that it is her best decision to marry Zeus. Okay, so that's one story. And another myth on their union is one where they eloped in secrecy. And their wedding lasted for 300 years. And the 300 years is significant because historically, if we think about the Hellenes and their attacks on native beings that were existing in the Mediterranean at the time, they conquered, essentially, tribes that were already there, and those tribes were Hera's people, a society that was basically matriarchal. And they didn't go down easy. Took about 300 years for their head priestess, Hera, to finally just say, all right, I will join forces with you. I will be your wife. And with her decision to become Zeus's bride, we then see monogamy. And we then see the rise of the patriarchy. And I'm not really one to be like, oh, patriarchy, screw that, it's so bad, it's wounded me, meh. I used to be like that, but now as a 30-year-old individual who has learned occult knowledge and history and formed her own opinions, I'm starting to see this whole binary as a learning lesson. And the matriarchy that is represented in Hera was great, but it also had its extremes, just like our patriarchy today has its extremes. And we're living in a time where the patriarchy is crumbling. So that's really exciting. And we already have the matriarchy under our belts with the rise and fall of Hera. So as we move more and more into this Aquarian age, I think with Aquarius being a more androgynous sign, we're going to be seeing the synthesis of both of these eras. And I don't know if there's a gender non-binary patriarchal, you know what I'm saying, or matriarchal, they triarchal. But I think we are being asked to really reflect on the binaries, which is women being, the representation of dark chaos, the emotional intelligence, the abstract, and then men being the representation of the light, logic, more dense, material. And how do we fuse these in the middle? Because I think our societies we've already tried both ends, and neither one of them really seem to think the other is good enough. However, us in our modern era have the choice to now oscillate and exist in the middle. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit off track. However, I think when we look at this mythology of Hera and Zeus and realize that Hera essentially chose consciously to go underground in her own way, to surrender her power to what needed to happen for us as a species of humans. So we explored the matriarchy and its extremes, and now we've explored the patriarchy and its extremes. And we need to let Hera come back. And I think we also need to allow space for Zeus to heal, because I think Zeus, being the symbol of patriarchy and kind of male might is right mentality, is hurting. And I don't think that that's like the highest octave of Zeus. Zeus is also Hera's brother, and we'll see a lot in mythology this brother sister husband wife thing. So Isis and Osiris, for example, in Egypt, their brother and sister. You see this kind of ideology or mythology in the twin flame movement that's popular right now. At least popular in the sense that people are talking a lot about it. I think it's something that is truth, especially with this grounding notion of brother, sister, Isis and Osiris. So essentially this divine couple that is one soul. Yeah. Anyways, so Hera agreed to basically surrender her powers to Zeus and allow Zeus and his kingdom to reign. And through that, she became the goddess of sacred commitments and honoring those things that we agree to do. She has the energy of Libra and Scorpio within her. So she is someone who cares about basically Hera doesn't like it when you say that you're going to do the dishes and then you don't. Because why did you waste her time and say you would? You know? And it's interesting because she took a vow with Zeus to be, loyal to him. And she was so loyal to him. She didn't sleep with anyone. And Zeus slept with everyone. And one thing that's really crazy is that Hera and Zeus actually never have a kid together. They each somehow create children independently of one another. Hera creates 4 children, I believe, from herself. And then Zeus is able to create Pallas Athena, who is beautiful. And everything that Hera creates from herself is like some sort of degenerative, deformed, or angry god. So, for example, Hera birthed Hephaestus herself, who is the forging god, who was born with clubbed feet and a handful of other deformities. And because of his appearance, Hera was really afraid and kind of like horrified by what she created by herself. So she threw him down to earth, and he ended up being raised by some nymphs and resenting her. Whereas Zeus, when he created something from himself, it was Pallas Athena, and she is this basically androgynous feminine figure that is allowed to hang out with the men in Olympus and is also greatly worshipped by all the mortals down in the mortal lands. So it's interesting because, like, even in exploring Hera further and the children she creates, for some reason they're all cast with some sort of like deformity or like intense rage, whereas when Zeus is able to basically create without her, just with himself, his creations are beautiful and divine. And I think that's also like a reflection of just this conditioning of trying to get us as a populace, especially growing through Greece into Rome, to really think that women were lesser than, and that emotional intelligence is lesser than, and that logic is actually priority. And I think when we explore mythology, you see a lot of notions towards women being violent, which is really interesting, or incapable of creating something that is strong and beautiful and worthy. I already kind of touched on this too. Just this constant agreeance or submission that women are taking to other male gods. So we see that with Ceres and Persephone. Persephone agrees to go to the underworld. There's another one that's kind of escaping me right now, but there's just like a continuous patterning of strong goddesses going to the underworld. And I think this notion is really because, like I said, it's this conscious stepping down of power that happened during Lumeria and the fall of Atlantis into Greek and Roman societies, where women needed to take that step down and allow the male principle to have its reign so that we can explore and individuate as physical characters in this earth. But with all that being said, we are reaching a time once again where we are being asked to look to that dark side, that feminine side, that chaotic side, and bring it into our physical reality. I think it's really, really time for us to hone in. So another point, or another synchronicity that's been occurring as far as this message of emotions is I went to Norwalk the other day, in Memorial Day weekend for one day, and Norwalk has this really awesome bookstore that they set up every year, and it's full of new astrology books and old astrology books. And I went in there and I was just looking around. I didn't really plan on buying any books, but because I was there, I thought, hey, let's go look. And I immediately was gravitating towards this really awesome purple book called Have We Met Before? And it's a book by Emma Bell Donath. And I was attracted to the book mainly because of the purple and the hearts. I ended up buying it, and then I walked outside and I sat down and I started reading this book. And it was really fascinating because within the first 10 pages, this author is mentioning one of my favorite teachers, Rudolf Steiner. And I thought that was just so wild because I just randomly picked up this book because of the hearts on it. And little did I know that this astrologer and author actually is also a student of Rudolf Steiner. And Rudolf Steiner, if you're unfamiliar with him, he is a channel and just intelligent man that existed in the late 1800s into the early 1900s. And he speaks on Lumeria. And he speaks about people during that time being less dense and kind of jelly-like. And what was really interesting was I've been thinking about this whole thing of matriarchy, patriarchy, the densification of us as a species. And I read this book, and what do you know? It's right there. She's talking about it too. And that's what I'm talking about occult studies, is life really becomes interactive, and you might have a question in your head or be pondering some sort of topic, and then the next thing you know, you go into a library and you are gravitating towards this book that's purple and has hearts on it, and then you buy the book and you open it, and what do you know? It's talking about the stuff you've been studying. Anyways, I'm going to read the little part just so I can give you all a little bit more context on these jelly people and whatnot. So this is a book about past lives and karmic connections, and it's really speaking specifically on lunar nodes. And I read this part on Cancer. So she's speaking about the Cancer lunar nodes. And it goes like this. There were differences in body appearance and density as well as weight and height during long past times in the Pacific continent of Lumeria. Yet the soul brings with it such far-flung memories. A young student and his teacher remembered such vivid memories and now share dreams of this long-ago continent. So it trails off into a case study of two people that she was examining their charts that had significant cancer placements and their past life connections. But I think the biggest thing that I'm really trying to hone in on here is just this echo of body differences and body appearance, and also this concept of there wasn't as much as a individuated experience of accountability during this time of a matriarchy, because people were really operating more of in a hive mind sense. And it isn't until you see the marriage of Hera and Zeus that we start moving into monogamy, and where people start really individuating and becoming more dense. And I'm not trying to make one or the other sound better. Like I said already, it's really just this pull of evolution from a less dense form into a more dense form. And so that's where we're at. We're like fully densified now. Whereas in Lumeria, we were a little bit more operating in an astral realm. And now we are just calloused and super dense. But that's all part of the journey. We're trying to figure out how to evolve as physical form, which is really hard, to be honest. And in order for that to occur, we have to become physical. And now that we are fully in our erect state, I think it's time to tap into our feelings. Let's get a little bit more watery. So as I'm speaking, it's Gemini season, and this was another thing that adds to the nuances of tapping into our emotions. So I mentioned the Hellenes and the 300-year wedding. So y'all know of Castor and Pollux, right? Well, have you ever heard of Clytemnestra and Helen? So the Gemini archetype is twins, but most people don't know that there's actually two sets of twins making four siblings. The men, Castor and Pollux, are considered to be more divine, whereas Clytemnestra and Helen are of the mortal realm. I know that Castor and Pollux, one of the twins was born mortal and one was born divine. However, as the mythology goes, eventually the both of them end up on a divine status and neither of them are mortal. Whereas Clytemnestra and Helen, they just stay in the mortal realm, and the divine twin is Helen, and how she is divine is through her just like jaw-dropping beauty, and Clytemnestra is just average. You know, whatever. Helen also is known for the Trojan War. So, such great beauty. Looks that can really kill, you know? Anyways, as the story goes with Helen and Clytemnestra, Clytemnestra lives a pretty anguished, sad, difficult life, whereas Helen kind of, she starts the war, but she's so pretty and she kind of just gets like trunked around from city to city, being protected, and like gets to choose her own husband and yada yada yada. And then Clytemnestra basically is forced into marriage at age 12, has a baby under this man who's really old, and she's like, all right, he's okay, like he takes care of me, that's nice, I'll just like take care of this baby. And then one day Agamemnon comes in and kills her old man husband and then slaughters her baby in front of her. And then Agamemnon forces Clytemnestra to be his wife, and she does it. She's like, all right, fine, I'm like, my life has already been hard enough, I'll just do it. She ends up having 4 kids with Agamemnon, and she's just like living her life and taking care of these children. And kind of just given up and acting really small. When one day Clytemnestra basically just has her limit, and the limit is Agamemnon tricking her into sacrificing their daughter, and this daughter is Clytemnestra's favorite daughter. And Agamemnon sacrifices their daughter because the winds have stopped, and he needs the winds in order to sail his boat, his warships. And so he basically was told by some nymph, some magical creature, maybe a goddess, the name is escaping me right now who it was, but basically this magical being said, hey, if you sacrifice your firstborn daughter, I'll give you the wind. And Agamemnon, being Agamemnon and very selfish and self-centered and war-driven, it's like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll do that in a second. So he tells Clytemnestra that their daughter is to be married to this renowned war hero, and nothing to worry. It's a good thing. He just needs to pick the daughter up and take her to be bathed and whatnot, prepped to be married. And Clytemnestra is like, okay, sure, I guess that's all right. And then firstborn daughter is dead, and Clytemnestra is heartbroken. And as Agamemnon is gone at war, with the wind sailing his boats, Clytemnestra finds another lover, someone that's local. And basically, when Agamemnon returns from war, her and this new lover kill him. She gets her revenge, which I honestly think is really awesome. And I'm really happy she decided to kill Agamemnon. However, with Greek mythology, there's always some sort of, like you can't kill your husband, don't kill your mom kind of stuff. So eventually Clytemnestra, one of her sons that she had with Agamemnon, avenges Agamemnon's death and kills Clytemnestra and her lover. Okay, so now that you understand that, I guess like the emotional message in that is Castor and Pollux, Helen and Clytemnestra. So duality, we know with Castor and Pollux, one twin is mortal and one is divine. And with Clytemnestra and Helen, one is average and one is like divinely beautiful. And I think when you kind of compare the male and female twin thing, okay, so first of all, the message you're getting is that women cannot be divine right off the bat, with the fact that Clytemnestra and Helen are kept into the mortal realm, and Castor and Pollux eventually they get a whole entire constellation after themselves, encapsulating them in Olympus. So there's that, and I think that in its subtlest way is already showing you, okay, there's been a lot of brainwashing to try and get our minds as humans to be more persuaded to the male polarity. So that's one thing. However, let's dive into the specifics of Clytemnestra and Helen. So Clytemnestra is basically the emotional side, the dark feminine, and Helen is the representation of the divine physical feminine. And that in the times of Greece and Rome, Helen might have been like the goal for every woman to be like this beautiful physical form that's not very needy necessarily, and kind of okay with being catered or just pushed around from here to there. She's so beautiful that she gets to choose her own husband kind of stuff. Like, it's really showing that there's just a lot of emphasis on female beauty being connected to godliness. And I think in a way, when you compare, like I said, the male twins to the female twins, it's like deepening this concept that like women shouldn't be using their emotions or giving any sort of virtue or value to their feelings. They should really only be beautiful figures that basically accentuate men and help them with their progress, I guess. Like trophy wives. Anyways. So there's that. Helen, she's beautiful, gets to do her thing. Clytemnestra, like, quite literally watched her first husband get murdered in front of her and her infant, and then was raped and had 4 children, and then had to watch her firstborn child be killed again. And it just, like, smoldered inside of her so much that these feelings and emotions came out as intense rage and revenge, and she ends up killing her rapist and husband, Agamemnon. And unfortunately, because the male patriarchy is in full control, her own son, feels like it is justified for him to kill his mother, even though his father raped his mother and basically forced her to be his bride. That doesn't matter, because it's the fact that female emotions acted. And that is bad. And we can't have any of that. So I'm going through all these mythologies. I'm going to the astrology conferences. I'm living my life every day. And I am just tuning in. And it really is saying, hey, sit with your fucking feelings. Like, excuse my French, but it's true. We can't hide. And we hide in so much physical stuff and so much material things to control and dampen how we actually feel. And it's actually in mythology and society that we don't listen to our feelings, that we don't give them center stage. We're supposed to be all logical and trying to get from point A to point B, or just looking good while we're navigating through life. That's more important than how we feel, right? I look good today. That's all that matters. I'm a woman. Someone should, like, praise me for my physical appearance and, not praise me for all the emotional work that I've done and sitting with my feelings and working on actually solving my baggage, going through all the things I've been carrying and reorganizing it and turning it into gold, something that's worth looking at. Not that everything's all about appearance, but I'm saying that these feelings, these ugly feelings that we carry around, aren't ugly. We've just been conditioned through hundreds of years to think that they're ugly, when in reality, they have a place at the table. And I really, really want us as humanity, to honor our feelings just as much as we honor our logic. I don't think either or is better. It's both of them together that really creates the alchemy. So look at us in America. Drinking alcohol is so encouraged. And it is something that suppresses our emotions. It is something that is culturally acceptable for us to partake in, to continue to remove ourselves from this feminine, darker aspect of ourselves. Alcohol is one example, but basically any sort of thing where your brain goes when you start thinking about something difficult, like friends even, social media, food, some physical thing outside of you that says, consume me, don't feel that thing. That's where I want you to tune in. Where are you surrendering your emotional body for physical needs, physical desires? We had the fall of the matriarchy. We're completely densified now. Our brains are willing to just keep us on this trajectory of further densification. However, we have 2 sides of our brains. We have a left hemisphere and we have a right hemisphere. So let's balance it out. Let's watch the fall of the patriarchy and the rise of the Aquarian age, and let's figure something out where we can stand in the middle of our 2 hemispheres consciously, just like how our women of the past, our great female leaders, consciously went to the underworld to allow for the physical form to take place. And now that it's here, how do we consciously integrate the emotional body? It starts by listening to our feelings and tuning into the moments where we are calling upon the physical world around us to suppress our feelings. I just really hope that as you go on through life and you tune in to the world around you, that you start picking up on patterns and myths, synchronicities, and really start allowing the universe to work with you. And to start seeing things from a non-polarized perspective. And to really tune into you, yourself. Even with the words that I'm sharing with you today, I want you to stop listening to this podcast and go and research things for yourself. And see where the universe is guiding you. Because I was told to sit down today and talk to you about emotions and feelings. And I had to really push myself to do this. Because, to be honest, I'm not a public speaker. But I am someone who listens and follows my heart. And I am being told full-heartedly right now. Like, I'm tearing up. Like, it is time for us to really start to feel. And to move with our feelings. We've honored the physical reality enough. It's time to tap into the internal reality that is within us and tap into that female that agreed to go into the underworld, and let's bring her back. Let's bring her back like Inanna, like Persephone. But let's not be angry. Let's not be angry at the patriarchy. Let's let it motivate us to build something greater. All right. Well, I hope that made sense. I feel like I rambled a lot, but I'm really trying to just allow myself to flow with these so that I can create content a lot quicker and also get my ideas a lot out easier. So, anyways, if you'd like to book a reading with me, you can. You can do so at my website, www.galacticmythology.com. If you are listening to this on YouTube, please leave me a comment, like, subscribe, share if you feel called. Whatever streaming platform you're listening to this on, leave me a review. I don't really know how it works. Spotify has its different ways. iTunes does too, but I do know that if you do some sort of interaction on your end, it will allow other people to get access to my work and maybe inspire them to start thinking about their feminine inner dark side and letting that get some room. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Lizz Grace. This is Galactic Mythology, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.